welcome back. So today I'm joined with a mum of two and breastfeeding specialist. Becky, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
How are you feeling?
Good.
Yeah?
Nervous.
Yeah.
But good.
Yeah, you said you was a bit nervous. I think it's like normal, isn't it? Coming into this sort of environment and it all being put out there, it is a bit nerve-wracking. But you're in good company. Me and Becky go way back to Yates's days.
Good old clubbing days.
Yeah,
on
2010 on the podiums. Yeah. Life's changed a lot
the
since
Jaeger
then.
bombs.
Yeah, and the jugs, the pictures.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, definitely not like that now.
No, our lives have changed considerably, haven't they? So talk us through, obviously you've got the two children. Tell us about how old they are, how you got into your industry. Let's just start from the beginning, basically.
So, I had Fred. He's going to be 13 in October this year. Mm-hmm. So I was 23 when I had him. Horrendous delivery. Didn't really know what I was doing. Couldn't breastfeed him. And that's what got me into this job. Mm-hmm. So I've got him, and then I've got Mila, who is 15 months. So a big gap in between.
I had that as well, obviously. How are you finding that?
Do you know what? I actually don't think I could have done it any sooner.
No.
Because Fred was so full on, and it's really nice we had all that time together. I think it was, that's how it was meant to be in my life. I think I would have struggled if, because she's so full on and demanding.
Girls are.
Oh my God. And it's be careful what you wish for, because I always obviously wanted a girl, and that's always what I wanted. And oh my God, she's just lovely.
Yeah.
But hard work.
Yeah.
And I think if Fred was any younger, it would have been a different story.
How did he adapt? Because Ez really struggled because it had just been us.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think because he's a boy and they go through that age where he's like very much in his room, playing his PlayStation, wants to be with his friends.
Yeah.
He always wanted a sibling. He wanted a brother.
Yeah.
So when he got a sister, he was a bit like, well, this isn't grunt.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't fun at all.
Yeah.
But he's adapted well. I think it's been obviously a big change for him, but he's good. He's helped me out massively. He's the person that will look after her when I go and have a shower or go to the toilet.
Yeah, you've got like an inbuilt babysitter. That's what I find. I mean, Ez is going to be 15 next month, and like today, usually I drop Jude off at 5, and then I leave for the podcast just after 6. But I normally drop Jude off to his nan, but she wasn't at home today, so his dad doesn't finish work till 6. So I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do here.
To have that in between time.
Yeah, so I had to leave him with Ez for like half an hour.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh God, is that okay? I don't know what the rules are, but she's actually,
all right.
She knows him better than anybody else.
Yeah.
So
and girls
amazing.
are mature anyway.
Yeah.
I'd like to think.
Well, the only thing she did say before I left the house was, I've got to do my homework. And I said, it's half an hour, just play with his toys with him, because he didn't want me to leave.
Yeah.
So I was like, just play with him, keep him occupied, and then you can do it when I leave.
Yeah, exactly.
And also you've had a whole week to do your homework. So
they always leave it to the last minute.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a nightmare.
So breastfeeding, how did you get to, was that before you had Mila?
Yeah, so I've done, so I'm a feeding specialist with the NHS, and I've done that for 10 and a half years. I've been working with the NHS. I started off actually as a maternity care assistant. So I got a job on the ward. It took me ages to get in because they were really particular out of who they hired, because I had no experience.
Well, I actually volunteered up there. I don't know if you remember.
I'm pretty sure you did, yeah.
Yeah, I volunteered for a year up there before, because I was trying to get a maternity care assistant job. I just couldn't get it.
No, they're so brutal.
Yeah, they're so hard.
But they have such a high staff turnover as well. So there's always like they're always continuously hiring people. So I finally got in there, and Fred was obviously I think he was about maybe, I can't do the maths, maybe 3? So he was still young, but he was going to nursery and it was fine. And I did 12 hours, so I could do lesser days, but longer shifts. And I just remember the first time someone called their buzzer and was like, I'm struggling to feed my baby. I hadn't had really any training. I'd done my one study day that you get when you start at the NHS. And I just helped her, and the baby latched on. And her face just like completely changed, and she was so grateful for that help. And something inside me was just like, that is what I want to do. Like, I hadn't had the experience with Fred because I was younger. He was on Travel Man, and no one really helped me. I just didn't have the support. They put a screen around me and was like, there you go, how are you feeding him? And I'm like, I don't know. And it just didn't work. I lost a lot of blood. It was a really traumatic time. So I just wasn't in a good headspace to even go down that route.
Yeah.
I did pump some and give him some express milk, so he at least had a little bit, but that was pretty much it. When he was just formula fed, and he's absolutely fine. Like, he's amazing. He's, clever. He's doing well. So that's perfect. But I just wanted to help people. So after I'd been on the ward for a bit, I decided that I wanted to go in the community because there were much better hours in the community.
So do you just go to their houses after they've had the baby then?
Yeah, so postnatal. So you'd have the baby, you'd go home, you'd have the visit from the midwife on your first day back home, and then we would do the day 5. So we'd do the breastfeeding support and we'd do the day 5s, we'd do the blood spot test, and we'd do the weights. And I did that for a long time, obviously with the feeding, doing the feeding support, and was loving it because I was able to do what I wanted to do. But I wanted to take it further, and we didn't have an infant feeding team in the NHS. So a lot it's crazy considering.
I was about to say, considering how much they drum it into you when you're there. Like, I've said this to you before we even started recording. I feel like people feel sometimes pressured that that's what they should be doing.
Yeah.
But there isn't the support there. Like, there's a lot of people that do want to breastfeed, but they don't have the support there to do it.
Exactly. And they've never done it before.
Yeah.
How are they meant to know what they're supposed to be doing? And it only takes, one bad latch. And that can turn things a negative way, for sure. So they didn't have an infant feeding team inside the hospital. We had an infant feeding lead, and she was doing the absolute best that she can. But the funding wasn't there, and that's what we're struggling with when it comes to the NHS. So me and my colleague, who doesn't do it with me anymore, she went on actually to be a nurse on Trevor Mam.
Oh, okay.
We started up infant feeding in the community. They basically allowed us to use our hours that we had within the NHS to have just as feeding. So I went to, they also funded me to go to London and do my lactation of London course.
Wow.
So I did that as well, which was really helpful. I learned so much on that course. And then we put it into practice. So we built it up from basically just seeing people like when they were referred to us from midwives to now it's a full-on service. So we'll get referred when they're in the hospital or when they go home, and we see all the complex cases, so all the weight losses, the ones struggling to latch. If there's other things going on, we see all the preterm babies, the babies are really poorly, like there's just a real mixture.
It must be really rewarding knowing that you've started that from scratch as well, like that was not there before you guys.
It was amazing. And we started it, but then COVID hit, so that kind of put a little bit of a spanner in the works, and we did continue to see people, but we had to give a lot of our hours back to the normal core because it was COVID and people were dropping like flies. So we had to just do normal visits, which is absolutely fine. But as soon as that died down, we've really kind of amped it up. So now we have clinics every week, cross-site in Brighton and at Haywards Heath. So I cover all of that area. Yeah. And we do home visits as well.
Wow.
So it's amazing.
And with 2 kids in tow as well.
2 kids in tow.
Take my hat off to you.
I mean, coming back from maternity was hard, I'll be honest. Yeah. Because before I had her, it was my life. Fred was older. He had his own life. He was going to school. He had his friends. He had his clubs. It was my life. I was taking it home with me every night. Bearing in mind I was only 3 days a week. Yeah. I was messaging the women every day of an evening because I would have my work phone on all the time because I needed to know, I wanted to know the updates of how it was going. They would send me, I've got pictures and videos. And because I'm just so, I just need to know. I took it a lot.
Yeah. How was your feeding journey with Mila then?
So, obviously, as a feeding specialist, I was like, well, I've got this. Yeah. This is going to be amazing. There's no way I can possibly fail. And I had a booked C-section, actually, because of the previous birth that I had with Fred.
Yeah, you touched on that and said it was traumatic. What happened, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no. So he was, I was overdue by 13 days. Normal, fine for a primate. But then he got stuck, so they had to use forceps, but he actually was shoulder dystocia as well. So his head was out for 7 minutes before the rest of his body. Oh, okay. And I lost a lot of blood. I think I ended up having 3 or 4 units of blood after as a blood transfusion. Wow. He was pretty much lifeless when he came out. He went straight up to Trevor Mann, considering he was £9.1 though, to be fair.
Oh,
he was
wow.
a big
boy,
baby.
yeah.
So I went up to Trevor Mann to see him.
All next to these
and I was
tiny
like, where is mine? And they were like, he's that one. I was like, oh, God. Okay.
Oh, bless.
And he was in the wars, bless him. And it was just, yeah, it wasn't very pleasant. And then, you know, having an episiotomy, having forceps, it was just awful.
Yeah.
That then broke down and I had to have it reconstructed 9 months later.
Oh, bless
so
you.
I just wasn't in a good headspace.
No.
Like, adding feeding onto it as well, it was never going to happen.
No.
I needed to do, I say the easiest option. It was the easiest option for me at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But so with her, I was like, well, this is going to be amazing. I've got all this knowledge under my belt.
Yeah.
No, it did not go to plan.
Really?
No.
That's probably refreshing for people to hear, though.
Oh,
because everyone goes through that, and
yeah,
you know, hearing they'd probably think, oh, she's got it, you know, but you did. So
I set myself up. You know, I'd done my antenatal hand expressing. I started that at 36 weeks. I was like, yeah, we're going to get some colostrum.
Yeah.
You know, save that, ready to give to her, because I knew she was a C-section. I wanted my milk to come in, you know, sooner. I did ask to have her a week earlier, so I booked my C-section at 38 weeks.
Yeah.
Just purely for the fact that I've got a prolapse. I don't know if that's too much information.
No, so it's not.
I've got a prolapse due like from Freddie's birth, basically. So for all this time, so
was it causing pressure
because of that, and you know, with when you have a higher BMI as well, it can really kind of cause a lot of dragging sensation. So I
don't know about you, but I think I've got a prolapse, to be honest. I've gone back and forth. They keep telling me I'm not.
Right.
But when I'm like on my period, I get this heaviness like down below. Yeah.
Because of the prolapse, I booked early. I wanted to have her at 38 weeks.
Yeah.
Plus they diagnosed me with gestational diabetes a week before.
Oh.
Randomly.
Yeah.
They said that she was a bigger baby. Okay, fine. So they weren't arguing with me about the 38 weeks. It was fine. It was booked in.
Yeah.
I then started hand expressing, maybe a bit too vigorously. And I always say to my women, don't start before 36 weeks because you have that very small percentage of people that can stimulate you to go into labour. I was that person.
Oh, no.
So I was collecting my colostrum. I got up and my waters just went directly after finishing. I had some stomach pains. So I was like, I'll probably stop now because I don't want to. And it was just me and Fred in the house, and they just went. And I was petrified because all through my pregnancy, I had it in my head, and I don't know why, because it's so rare, that I was going to have an aneurysm when my waters go. Right. Like, it's so rare, but I think because I don't know whether.
Well, you've had trauma before,
and I'd seen, you know, you hear of it happening.
You've been in the industry for a long time.
And it was just stuck in my head, and I was like, so then as soon as my waters went, I was like, well, this is it. I'm going into cardiac arrest now. So I'm counting down.
Oh, bless you.
I was like, it's such a state.
Did your waters go with Fred, or is this the first time? So mine went with Ez, but they didn't with Jude. So that's such a weird experience because I heard I heard the pop, but it was like, and I was like, I thought my hot water bottle had burst, and I was like,
what was that?
I would have been scolded. What the hell is this?
And it just went.
Yeah,
it's the oddest feeling. I never had it with Fred.
Yeah.
And it just kept on coming.
Yeah.
There was no reason.
No one tells you that either, that it just continuously comes.
I thought, you know, with Fred, they trickled. They must have done it with the amnio hook. And I think they just trickled out.
Yeah.
With her, it was like, oh my God, like full on gushes. Didn't get any contractions.
Yeah.
But I went in because I was bit section anyway.
Yeah.
They said, do you want to leave it overnight and see if you go into labour? And I was like, do you know what? Yes. Because if I do start having contractions, maybe I'll consider going naturally because that's maybe the course that's intended for me.
Yeah.
I didn't go into labour. So the next morning I went for section and it was fine. You know, I've seen a lot of sections from the other end of it.
Yeah.
When you're in it, it's weird, but nowhere near as traumatic as Fred.
Yeah.
So that was a good experience.
And I think when you've got your head around that you're going to be having a C-section and you know that, I think it's different when people get like, you know, if you're having an elective or you've got a planned one, it's different to being rushed in emergency when you haven't planned it to be like that.
No, although it was slightly out of plan.
Yeah.
I knew I was still going for it because I'm very much a planner. Yeah. I like to know
I'm the same.
What I'm doing. And so that did throw a bit of a spanner in the works. But it worked out well. She was here. She was fine. She didn't latch on. She was really, I don't know, I had a gut feeling that something wasn't right with her. I've seen a lot of babies over the years and she just wasn't behaving how a normal newborn baby should behave. Mm-hmm. She wasn't doing any of the latching. I did bring my syringes in and I gave her the colostrum. So that was amazing, whatever I had. Mm-hmm. She wasn't feeding. She wasn't really keeping the syringes down. She was actually just throwing them up. She didn't poo. And they took her away actually, and she had like a flat episode with them, which caused them to then take bloods. And they weren't sure why she wasn't clearing the meconium either. So that wasn't happening. So I think it was that night they'd actually decided to take her up to Trevor Mam. And I think they ended up doing a bowel washout. Right. To make sure there was no obstruction. And they found out that she had, they were treating her for sepsis. And there's two types of jaundice. You've got physiological jaundice, which a majority of babies get, where they look a little bit tanned, but they're otherwise healthy. They're weeing and pooing well, and that's fine. Then you have the other side of it, which is pathological jaundice, which can be really dangerous if it's not treated.
Right.
So she didn't look jaundice. They'd just by fluke done the bloods, which then showed that her bilirubin was really high.
Oh, okay.
So she had pathological jaundice, which we don't know why that occurred. We still don't to this day.
Yeah.
But she wasn't good. So she had to be tube fed, and she was upstairs.
So you've had 2 dealings with Trevor Mam.
Yeah, this time was worse than the other time because he was only there for a short period of time. This time she was there for a week.
Oh, wow.
On the bed. So I couldn't...
do skin to skin.
Couldn't touch her. Yeah. Couldn't get her out. She had to be under there. It was really hard, to the point where they even called the counsellor on me because I think they were worried about my mental health. And I was so set on it not being like this. Yeah. And I think that's what got me the most.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't going to plan. And my feeding journey wasn't going to plan. Luckily, I was really lucky and they gave me a private room. Perks of, I mean, you don't get many perks, so you should get that at least.
Yeah.
So I had that, which was really nice, and I used the pump immediately and started sending milk up to her. So she was at least being tube fed my breast milk.
Yeah.
And I built that up a lot. I wanted to get her out of Trevor Man, and she wasn't latching on. She was way too sleepy. So I went on, then transferred her to the bottles. Mm-hmm. And then when we got home, I went on to nipple shields to transition her from the bottles, because that's always a really good stepping stone. They're very controversial.
Yeah. I've never actually... I think I got bought some when I was pregnant, and I didn't actually even know what they were for. They could be if you had sore nipples.
They can be.
Oh, okay.
So if you are really struggling, like if you've done a lot of damage, and to stop you from giving up breastfeeding altogether, then you would absolutely use a nipple shield, because that's going to help the situation. Same as if you've got a baby that's been on bottles or isn't latching. It's like a stepping stone to get them to latch on.
Okay.
Really useful. But they can be controversial.
Mm-hmm. Why?
I don't know. People think that they're a negative thing because they're not directly on the breast tissue. They don't think they're not stimulating as well as being directly on the breast tissue. Okay. So I always recommend that my women pump alongside them for extra stimulation. And as long as that baby is transferring that milk well, which I would always make sure that they're doing, there is no reason they can't use them.
Yeah.
Most babies transition off of them themselves by around about 6 weeks.
Okay.
Which is exactly what she did.
Yeah.
She transitioned off of them and then went directly onto the breast, and I'm still feeding her now.
Oh, wow.
So
you've had a good journey in the end.
Once we got there. Yeah. But if I didn't have the knowledge that I had, there's absolutely no way that I would have done it. No way.
And I think that's the thing. It's like, I spoke to you briefly about it before we started recording. So when I fell pregnant with Ez, I was 17 when I fell pregnant, 18 when I had her. And when they said, do you want to breastfeed her? There was my mum, my sister, my ex-partner, his mum, her friend, all in the room. And I felt like, as an 18-year-old, I'm not getting my boob out in front of everyone.
Yeah.
And I haven't actually said this, I don't think, on here. I've got odd boobs. And it's really been like a thing in my head that I'm like, oh God, what if anyone sees my boobs and knows that they're odd? I know that sounds so stupid.
But why? What do you mean by odd? Like, just different shape?
No, different sizes. So like one's like a D, one's like a B. They're completely different sizes.
Okay.
So that was always in my head that I didn't even want the nurses to come and help.
Because you thought it was...
Because I thought they'd be like, oh my God, how weird. Like, do you know that sounds so stupid?
No, I know what you mean.
Like you do just feel like that.
You just had a complex with them.
And then when I fell pregnant with Jude, actually... Going back, my breast milk, both of them, started coming through at 16 weeks. How weird is that?
Yeah, so your colostrum is produced from 16 weeks.
Yes, so literally straight away I've had to wear breast pads, and I'm not joking, I'd be soaking through them the whole way through my pregnancy. So I had such a good milk supply. When I was pregnant with Jude, I'd done the syringes.
Yeah, please tell me you did. You must have had so many.
I had a whole freezer full of milk.
Yeah.
But then, as I told you, when I first had him, I was feeding him. He was being really, really sick. And I was like, oh, God. So then they were like, maybe try just a formula. So I was like, okay. So I just tried a formula and he was being less sick, but was still being he was still not right.
Yeah.
And then we ended up going back and forth to A&E. He wouldn't poo. I'm not joking, this poo that came out of him in the bath was like that long, attached to him, rock solid like that. I'm not joking, I've got a video of him pooing. And I went up to hospital and I was like, you need to do something because he does not stop screaming. He will not poo and he's bringing up every single bottle. And it ended up he had a cow's protein milk allergy. So instead of them saying to me, what you need to do is not have any dairy, which sounds so simple.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, I'll just go on the prescription formula then that you're going to give me. And I just gave up. But I had
that lack of knowledge.
I chucked away all of that freezer full of milk.
Oh my God.
I know.
That liquid gold.
Yeah, all of it gone. Actually, I did save some of it because they said if they get conjunctivitis, that it's good for their
eyes, their bum.
Yeah.
Just general face care.
So I did keep a couple of them in the freezer. But yeah, a lot of it went. But I remember like my ex-partner at the time being like, oh my God, I just want a bloody Magnum and there's just loads of breast milk in the freezer. Like, sorry.
Oh my God, that is such a sad thing to hear.
Yeah.
Like so sad because it shouldn't be like that. Like the simplest thing just to cut out, and you don't even need to cut out absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Like you just eliminate it little by little because the likelihood is that they are going to grow out of it.
Well, he did in the end.
Yeah. And then you would slowly, as they start to wean, you would slowly then start to introduce it again. And there's so many good milk alternatives these days for us to have.
Yeah.
Like, I have oat milk anyway.
Yeah, well, we pretty much all went oat milk after that. And like, even... Because when he started weaning, I was just buying oat milk. And I was like, do you know what? We just all have that.
Yeah.
So rather than buying loads of milk, because it would just go off because there's obviously not a lot of us drinking a lot of it. And then he doesn't really have milk anymore. But he had oat milk even when he didn't have his intolerance just because he didn't like the taste of it anymore. So,
yeah, I don't, to be fair. I've never been a fan of it.
To be honest, I'm not a big dairy lover anyway. But
I mean, chocolate.
I love chocolate. I hate cheese. Like,
you hate cheese?
Yeah, I hate it.
Oh, see, I like certain cheeses.
No, not for me. I can have it on a pizza and that is it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have like cheese and biscuits?
Oh, absolutely no way. No, not for me. Not for me. Cheese board at Christmas.
So you could have easily cut it out then?
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been a problem.
To be honest, easily. No, because I was eating a whole dairy milk every night. But...
Okay. Could you have gone to maybe a darker chocolate?
No, I would have just had to go teetotal because I can't deal with dark chocolate.
Well, not even the ones that like have the little sea salt in?
No.
Okay.
No, I would have dairy milk or nothing, and then it would have just been nothing. There's a whole glass of milk. No, what's the actual thing they say? Glass and a half in each bar. So that's a lot, to be honest.
To be fair, yeah.
That's how I get my
couldn't
dairy
just have a little square. That would be it.
Oh, hell no. I literally eat the whole lot, even now.
There must be vegan chocolate these days, though.
Yeah, probably.
I've never tried it.
No, me either. We've really gone off course.
Yeah, we really have.
I'm talking about bloody chocolate
Vegan
now.
white chocolate, surely.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's really sad. Like, really sad that your journey was ruined because of just something that was so simple.
Yeah. So... With your actual services you provide within the NHS, I know you said that you tell everybody not to start expressing from 36 weeks. Does that mean that you're within the breast, like you're seeing pregnant women, or is it only after birth that you're helping with?
So if people have had a really traumatic experience, or I see a lot of people with anxiety around feeding, or previous bad experience, like people that have had like breast abscesses or mastitis previously, things like that, or supply issues. So you have people that, have insufficient glandular tissue, essentially, which is lack of milk ducts. They've obviously had a struggled first time round, so your breast tissue grows with each pregnancy you have.
Right.
So we need to kind of get onto that quicker. So they refer to me antenatally.
Right.
We put a plan in place, essentially. So I see them before. I would only get them hand expressing, not actually full on expressing before the baby's born, and as much colostrum as they can collect, because it's so beneficial. I mean, if breastfeeding is what you want to be doing with the baby and you don't want them to have formula, if you've got that colostrum to fall back on, it's not even just about actually having the colostrum, it's about the practicing of hand expressing itself, because once you've cracked it and you know what you're doing, you can always fall back on that. So if the baby doesn't latch immediately when they're born, you would start hand expressing, and because you've done it antenatally, it's not a stress on you because you already know what you're doing. I had a friend recently who I helped. She did amazing. She got lots of colostrum antenatally, and when he came out, she gave that all to him, which was a lifesaver, and she now can hand express amazingly.
Yeah.
Because she already knew what she was doing.
Yeah. So, can you tell us, for the people that don't know about colostrum, what are the benefits?
So the benefits, it has so many antibodies. It acts as their first immunisation. So it has so many antibodies in. It helps clear, it's like a laxative as well, so it helps clear their meconium poo through as well.
Okay.
It's just so beneficial. And obviously the calories it provides. It's
liquid gold. Yeah, I was just about to say, I remember them saying that
liquid gold.
Because it is literally like yellow,
and it's like a sticky, like goldy substance.
Yeah.
And yes, it's not obviously a normal thing to be doing, to be compressing your breast and getting these little beads come out and then sucking it out with a syringe. But the more you do it, the more familiar you get with it.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's so beneficial.
So for people that are like pregnant at the moment and they're not sure on what they want to do, obviously there's so much out there that people feel pressured to breastfeed over bottle. As we always say, like, fed baby is best. It doesn't matter which way you choose to do it, as long as it's your choice and that you're not actually being forced down whatever path.
And no judgment.
Yeah.
Like, so people will get referred to me that are mixed feeding.
Yeah.
So they're not necessarily just wanting to be just breastfeeding. They want to express. They want to do some formula. There's a real mixture, especially if they've got twins. So I get a lot of twin people get referred to me, even triplets actually as well.
Oh, okay.
So whenever I meet any family that's been referred to me, either through the NHS or privately, the first thing I say to them is, what are your feeding goals? You tell me what you want to do and we will devise a plan that works for you. There is no pressure either way. I'm not one of them people that, you have to breastfeed, you have to do this. But your mental health is way more important than anything else, because your enjoyment of that baby has to be not taken over by the stress of feeding. It's so important because you don't get that time back.
No, you don't. And also, if you let your boobs dry up and then you suddenly... I remember this one day and Jude just would not stop crying, and I was like, I just want to, like, put him on my boob and see if he'll latch on, but there's just nothing left. And I was like...
It's gone to dust.
I just feel like a weirdo now. I've just got this baby on my boob and he doesn't know what to do.
Because that's the thing. So you don't always just feed for food.
No.
They feed for lots of different reasons. So it will be because it's their fluid. So when it's hot, they'll feed a lot more frequently because it's their fluids. Your breast milk goes a lot more watery when it's hot. Or same when it's winter, your breast milk will go thicker.
Yeah.
Because they need it to fill the baby up and do all of that. It changes to what that baby needs.
That's really interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah. So it's amazing. Like when I went on holiday last year when she was 4 months, as soon as I touched down in Spain, my breast milk went completely watery.
Oh, how weird.
Really, really odd, because it was changing to what it needed, for what she needed it to be.
Yeah.
The same goes for anything, like if you feed a baby in a room where someone's ill, got a virus or a cold, your body will pick that up, that's around, and automatically produce antibodies to give to that baby while they're feeding in that room to protect them against it before they've even got ill.
That's crazy.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is incredible. In regards to, like, again, going back to pregnant people, they're not sure, I think most common asked question is, how do you know if they're getting enough breastfeeding?
Funny enough, it's one of the biggest reasons people will give up.
Yeah.
Because they don't trust the process. It's hard when you don't know what...
If you're exclusively breastfeeding instead of pumping, at least
you
if you're
can't
pumping,
see what's going in.
Yeah.
So you will be looking at for regular outputs. So you want regular wees, regular poos.
Right.
That has to be a breastfed baby. Breast milk is like a laxative. So what goes in will come back out.
Yeah.
That will tell you what you need to know. And they will feed frequently regardless. And that will then stress you out because you think, well, they want feeding again. Oh, they must not be getting enough, which isn't correct. Breast milk is so natural that it passes through the gut really quickly.
Yeah.
So then they want to feed more frequently.
Right.
That is a normal process to happen. Plus, they need to feed more frequently to regularly stimulate the breast to create a milk supply.
Yeah.
So you're looking for your outputs. You'll be looking at the weight gain as well. That will be checked regularly when you're under midwifery care. So they will check that as standard day 5, day 10, I believe, as well they do. And then obviously if you're under the feeding team, I would check that regularly as well. Once you leave maternity care, you've got drop-ins that you can go to, and the health visitors obviously will weigh as well.
Yeah.
And a nice content baby.
Yeah.
Essentially is what you're looking for, albeit not long periods of time, unless you're one of them lucky people that has a breastfed baby that will feed for like 5 minutes and then have a good gap in between.
Yeah.
But that's rare.
So how long on average, or does it change? Like, should they be sat on the breast?
It really is completely different.
Yeah.
So it depends on the baby's efficiency, how much milk supply you have. Some babies will take both breasts, some babies will take one. It's about your milk kind of capacity. So it's not about your size of your breasts at all. It's about the milk ducts that you have inside, which we can't see. So some people will have a lot of glandular tissue, a lot of milk ducts, so they hold more of a storage capacity, so that baby can have a good feed and then a longer gap.
Right.
Someone that has a smaller storage capacity, that baby's going to feed more frequently, which is completely normal. And until you're in it, you don't know what it's going to be.
You're saying about it doesn't matter if your boobs are smaller or bigger. If somebody has got really big boobs, obviously I'm not one of them, I wish I was, guys.
No, you don't, trust me.
Oh, no, I do.
It comes with its own downfalls.
But is it harder to...
I can't do it discreetly.
Yeah, I mean, not even the discreetness, but like, is it harder for the baby to latch on a bigger boob or no?
No, you think so.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is it harder because it's more for them to work on?
So if your baby is latching at the right angle, then their nose should always be free. So you think with a big boob, if you were to put a baby on, that their nose would be squashed, then they're not going on at the right angle.
Right, okay.
They need to be coming on asymmetrical, so off-centre, essentially. Their nose will always be free. So I've never, ever had a problem. I actually feed her a lot in underarm.
I see.
I still just kind of whack her behind and come from that angle just because I find it easier to manoeuvre.
Yeah.
But underarm works well with big boobs. It's completely different for everybody. But no, that nose should be free regardless.
Okay. And with the services you provide, like how many visits do you get under the NHS from you?
So you can be seen for up to 4 weeks.
Okay.
At 28 days, you have to be discharged over to the health visitors.
Okay.
But the health visitors do have an infant feeding team as well. So I would always refer them to take over.
Yeah.
If we've not got to a point that you're happy with.
Right.
Which a lot of the time we haven't, because 4 weeks isn't an awful lot.
Yeah.
The first 6 weeks are the most important for building your milk supply.
And so how often are you seeing them in that 4 weeks?
So definitely once a week, sometimes 2.
Okay.
But because there's not many of us in the team, I think there's 3 of us in the team.
It's hard, isn't it?
It's hard. We've got obviously limited clinic space, and then I do home visits on a Tuesday, which, because I'm there for quite a long time, because I can't put a time limit on it essentially.
Yeah.
I don't fit that many in.
And so you just deal with them straight from coming from hospital, so they've only got that small window as well.
So sometimes I'll go in the hospital.
Oh, okay.
And see them on the ward.
Right.
I'll be honest, I don't do it frequently because it's a stressful environment.
I can imagine.
It's stressful and it's really hot.
And I think if you're relaxed in your own home environment, you probably do better anyway.
Those day 1, day 2 babies, as a feeding specialist, they stress me out.
Yeah.
Because I'm so used to going there and we latch the baby on and they have an amazing feed.
Yeah.
They're not going to do that on day 1 or 2
No.
because they're going there recovery sleep.
Well,
they're learning. breastfeeding is a learned skill for both of them.
Yeah.
So it takes time. It's really difficult.
Right, so we've had some questions come through that I'm going to ask you. So somebody asked how they can increase their milk supply. They're struggling to produce enough milk for the baby. So I'm assuming maybe, are they pumping?
I can imagine so. Maybe they're pumping and maybe exclusively giving express breast milk. I don't know. So stimulation is the key. That is how you're going to produce more. It's a supply and demand.
Right.
So what you need to be doing is up in your pumping.
Yeah.
So you can add something called a power pump.
Right.
Where you would take an hour slot and you would pump for 20 minutes. You would break for 10. Pump for 10, break for 10 for an hour.
Oh, okay.
And what it does is it mimics a baby cluster feeding. So it then increases your supply. So any stimulation that you do is sending a signal to your brain to produce more milk. So that is what you need to do.
Okay.
And also a decent pump will help as well.
Can you recommend what one you would suggest?
So there are some pumps I could recommend not to do.
Yeah. That'd probably be more useful.
Some of them are really expensive, especially for like the double electric breast pumps. So things like the Tommy Tippy, a lot of people will get them because they're Tommy Tippy. They're a named brand. They are not great pumps for what you pay at all. You want a hospital grade, but if you're looking to really boost your supply or you're struggling with your milk supply, you need a hospital grade electric pump.
You can hire them, can't you?
You can.
Yeah.
So you can get them directly from Medela, which they're amazing. They're the ones that they have in the hospital as well.
Yeah.
But there's also something called a Spectra breast pump.
Oh, okay.
Which I think is quite big in America. You can get them on a website called anawiz.com.
I'll put all of this in the show notes for people as well.
And a Spectra S1 or S2. The only difference between the two of them is one's portable, one's plug in the mains.
Okay.
I think they're about £140 to buy, or you can rent them as well.
Yeah, that's not too bad, 140 considering that's going to be...
Considering the Tommy Tippy, I think it's 170.
Yeah.
Like, I would 100% do that all day long.
Yeah.
A lot of people are wearing the wearable breast pumps as well.
I was going to ask you, what you think? Is it called a hacker?
So hacker's different. So hacker is a milk collector essentially. You would put it on one side while you're feeding the other.
Okay.
And it collects the letdown.
Okay.
Which can be really, really good if you want to collect some extra. If you've got a good supply.
Yeah.
And you just want to collect what's left over. They also can be really good if you've got a blocked duct. You would use a hacker, put warm water and Epsom salts, and then put your breast in it, and it actually dislodges the blocked duct. You see the milk kind of pop out. Oh my
God, amazing.
Yeah, so that's a good little trick as well.
That must be satisfying. Question from me, is it true, I remember my boobs used to hurt so much, going back to it, the cabbage leaves... Is that a myth or is that true?
No, Savoy cabbage. You don't just go any cabbage.
Okay. It's me like smart price.
Just get normal cabbage. Has to be a Savoy cabbage.
Right, okay.
And you would put it in the fridge or freezer, take a leaf out, put it into each bra.
Right.
The enzymes it releases is a really good healer for engorgement.
Oh, okay.
So really beneficial. However, you don't want to leave it in too long. 2 reasons. 1, you will stink of cabbage because you cook it. And 2, it can suppress your milk supply if it's left in for too long.
Okay.
But really beneficial.
Yeah, for relieving that, I guess.
Yeah, because it's cold. You want that cold compress on there.
Yeah.
Because engorgement is a normal thing to happen when your milk comes in. Obviously, it's not fun and it's not comfortable. So anything you can to relieve it.
Yeah, okay. Is it okay to combination feed with breast milk and formula?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of people do it. You just need to be mindful that when you're doing the formula and that baby's having that and they're not either going to you or you just need to pump in replacement essentially because you don't want to be leaving your
milk
breast
supply to go down.
Yeah. If it's not regularly stimulated, your supply is going to go down.
Okay.
And then obviously you've got to struggle then to build it back up again.
Yeah.
So yes, you can absolutely do a happy medium. A lot of people do. And I support them to do whatever they want to do. We just work out a plan where they are still incorporating some form of pumping or stimulation.
Yeah.
And then get their head down. Because you usually find that the partners give the formula bottle.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I do think, like, that's probably more the route that they go down, especially with pumping as well. At least you can share that.
Yeah.
Waking up, do you know what I mean?
At the end of the day, you do what you want to do. What works for you as a family. Because don't forget, a lot of these people have other children. They might have toddlers or even babies still. You know, I see people that, you know, have got 1-year-olds and they're having another baby.
A girl I know had a baby and fell pregnant straight away, and then had the baby she was pregnant with ended up coming early, and there's only 9 months between them.
Oh, wow.
And they're both in the same year at school now.
Isn't that called like Irish twins?
Yeah.
Or something like that?
Yeah. So I was just thinking, take my hat off to her.
How would you explain that to the other kids in the class?
Literally, no, we're both brothers.
We're not twins though.
No.
Fascinating.
How do I stop breastfeeding / know when it's purely just for comfort?
So it will be for comfort because they do that.
Yeah.
That's a normal thing for them to do. And actually it's really, really good for their brain development.
Yeah.
So if they're wanting to go up to you, obviously as long as you're okay with doing that, then you allow them to do it.
Yeah.
In regards to stopping, that is it's a difficult one because you both kind of have to be ready.
Yeah.
Like I had a limit of a year.
Yeah.
In my head, I was like, I'm doing a year and that's it. But it never materialised because she's still and then and then I had like the next thing, and it's like, I'll do it after this, and then I'll do it after this, and it's like, I'll let her start nursery in September because she's going to get ill and I want to protect her against all of those viruses that she's going to get. So now we're in the midst of that, and then I'm like, well then I'll just do it till Christmas.
Yeah, because then it's winter. Yeah.
And then it just kind of
continues.
It's really, really tricky. You just kind of have to gradually build down because your breasts are going to be probably engorged.
Oh my God, when you've got to dry them up.
If you're going to start to stop that, you need to do it gradually. You're going to have to do some form of minimal stimulator, manage kind of what's there, lots of compresses, maybe hand express some as well, just to kind of relieve that engorgement. But it's telling the baby telling however old the child is that they're not going to have it anymore.
It's hard, isn't it?
It's like a grieving process.
Yeah, for both of you, I think, as well. Especially if it's like your last baby and you know that you're not going to be doing that again. It's like hard to say goodbye to that, I think.
Yeah.
I thought Jude would be my last one, so I feel like I remember when I had to like go on to the formula.
Yeah.
I literally, my boobs drying them up. I remember sitting in the shower just crying because they hurt so much. And being like, I can't even breastfeed her. I really want to do that. My boob looked like a square. I'm not joking. It was like the most weirdest shape.
Just one?
Just one. Just the bigger one. The one with the better boobs. Okay. Then I was like, what is going on?
The other one's just like...
The other one was just like, we're over here.
Just hanging out.
Yeah, no, awful. So you offer your services through the NHS.
Yes.
And
you have to be referred through the NHS. Yeah. So once you've had the baby, or obviously antenatally if you've got any reasons why you need to be.
Yeah.
The midwives will do the referral when you're in hospital or when they see you at home.
Yeah.
And then I would get in contact with you, book you into the clinic or come and see you at home depending on the circumstances.
Yeah.
Obviously I do work privately as well.
Yeah.
Under the breastfeeding specialist. I try not to see people that are still under maternity care, just purely for the fact that I would prefer you to be seen for free under the NHS. But sometimes that doesn't always fit in with people because they require more support or they want extra support, which is absolutely fine. If that's on their own decision making, then I'll see them because there's lots of other lactation people, you know, working, which is amazing. There's that support, but it is privately based.
And so with your private work, obviously within the NHS, it's normally the first 4 weeks. Do you cover a variety of ages or do you still stick to... Okay.
Yeah. So I've seen babies that are kind of, 3 months old plus, sometimes a little bit older.
Oh, okay, amazing.
I don't usually get involved with the weaning process.
Yeah.
Because that usually comes under the health visitors criteria with weaning and introducing food. Obviously, I can help with the breastfeeding aspect of it, but it's usually younger babies than 6 months. I'd say.
Okay.
Oh, I do want to touch base on it shouldn't hurt because there is so many myths around. People tell everyone, breastfeeding hurts at the beginning. That's normal. It's not normal. If breastfeeding hurts at any point, it's because that baby either is not latched on correctly or there's something already going on with the baby.
Like tongue ties and things like that. That's
always a potential. So if you've worked on position attachment and you know that is good, you're latching the baby on well, and it's still painful, or your nipple's coming out misshapen. So your nipple should always come out the same as before, but just elongated, because they do double your nipple in size when they latch on. Yeah. It should never be misshapen.
Okay.
So if it is, then you would need to, we have tongue tie clinics with the NHS that you would get referred to, and you would go for that assessment.
Okay.
But breastfeeding shouldn't be painful and shouldn't feed through the pain.
And one other thing I wanted to say while we're touching on pain, mastitis. Have you got any tips for that?
So mastitis obviously is usually because that breast hasn't been drained efficiently, which then is built up and caused to have an infection. You are supposed to feed through mastitis because you have to regularly stimulate still and empty the breast. It obviously is very painful. You would get on antibiotics. And
so can you still feed them?
Yes, they will prescribe you antibiotics. That is absolutely fine to take when you're breastfeeding.
Okay.
And then, funny enough, wherever the mastitis is or where the lump is, you want to try and get the baby's chin position-wise when you're latching them on at that point so that it can massage it at the same time.
Okay.
So some people have them over their shoulders.
All the different positions.
Just weird positions. But yeah, mastitis isn't fun. And once you've had it, you're obviously then worried that you're going to get it again. But you would definitely need to seek some support in regards to the positioning and making sure that baby is efficiently draining that breast. Yeah. Because again, that could be a tongue tie.
Yeah.
And they're not being able to use their tongue function to officially drain the breast.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on today. It's been amazing. I'm sure this episode will help a lot of mums in need at the moment. And even those of you that are pregnant and thinking about breastfeeding, hopefully this is giving you some knowledge to go forward with and that you have got access to support. Whereas I think years back there wasn't that support there, was there?
No, absolutely not.
I know it is limited through the NHS, but as we have said, Becky does work privately as well, so if you do want to get in touch with her, I'll put her over to you now so you can give your Instagram handle.
That is the Breastfeeding Specialist, and then my website is thebreastfeedingspecialist.co.uk.
Okay, perfect. And make sure you're following us on Instagram, TikTok and YouTube at Mummahood The Podcast. Please leave a review on wherever you're following us. Share it with a friend and let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments. Make sure that you're showing some support to Becky as well, following her on Instagram, and we will see you same time next week. Love you, bye.